On a chilly autumn evening in downtown Chicago, the streets buzzed with laughter, footsteps, and the clinking of glasses from nearby restaurants. The air smelled of roasted chestnuts from a vendor's cart and the faint aroma of fresh bread from a bakery that had just closed. But while the city moved forward in its lively rhythm, one young girl stood still on the corner of Main and Fifth. She was about 11 years old, wrapped in an oversized hoodie that looked more like a blanket than clothing. Her shoes were worn out, her hair tangled, and her cheeks red from the cold. In her tiny hands, she held a piece of cardboard with shaky letters written in black marker. "Can I play for food?" Most people walked past without noticing, their eyes fixed on their phones or conversations. Others gave her quick, dismissive glances. Some laughed under their breath, thinking it was just another kid looking for attention. "Play? What you gonna play, air piano?" One man chuckled his friends as they strolled by. The girl lowered her eyes, gripping the cardboard tighter. Behind her, leaning against the wall, was a battered old keyboard she had found weeks ago near a dumpster. 2 keys were missing, and the speaker crackled when turned on, but to her, it was treasure. She wasn't begging for money. She wasn't asking for pity. She only wanted to do the one thing that made her feel alive: play music. The crowd, however, only saw a homeless child with a broken instrument. They didn't know that inside this fragile little girl lived a gift so rare, so powerful, it could silence a noisy street in seconds. That night, as the city's lights shimmered and the cold wind pushed harder, she placed her fingers on the worn-out keys. And in that moment, the girl made a choice. If no one believed in her, she would make them listen. She took a deep breath, closed her eyes, and began to play AT first. The sound was rough. The old keyboard speaker crackled and buzzed, struggling to keep up with her touch. A few people turned their heads, ready to laugh at the noise. But then, something unexpected happened. Her small fingers moved with astonishing speed and grace, dancing across the chip keys as though the instrument was brand new. The melody that poured out was rich, emotional, and hauntingly beautiful. It wasn't the simple plunking of a child playing at random. It was music that told a story, one of pain, hope, and survival. The laughter faded. Conversations died down. People who had been rushing to catch trains or grab coffee slowed their steps. One by one, strangers turned toward the girl on the corner. A woman carrying grocery bags froze in place, her eyes widening. A businessman on his phone whispered, "Wait, is that coming from her?" Even the street vendor selling hot dogs leaned over his cart, mesmerized. The girl didn't open her eyes. She didn't need to. Music was the only place where she felt safe, where the world's cruelty couldn't touch her. With every note, she painted emotions too deep for words: loss, loneliness, and yet a stubborn spark of hope that refused to die. A little boy tugged at his mother's coat. "Mommy, she plays like the people on TV." The mother, unable to look away, just nodded in awe. Coins began to drop into the small cup beside her keyboard. First one, then another. Soon the metallic clinks created their own rhythm alongside her music. But the girl wasn't counting. She didn't even glance at the cup. For her, this wasn't about money. It was about proving that she was more than the label people had given her: homeless. Minutes passed, but no one moved. The street that had been filled with noise was now silent, united by a melody flowing from the hands of a little girl who had been invisible just moments before. And then, without warning, a voice cut through the crowd. "Who taught you to play like that?" The girl's fingers froze. Slowly, she opened her eyes. The voice came from a tall man near the front of the crowd. He wore a long coat, his scarf neatly tied, and in his hand was a briefcase that hinted at money and power. But his face wasn't mocking. It was curious, almost impressed. The girl blinked at him, unsure she should answer. Her instinct told her to stay quiet. People usually asked questions only to make fun of her. "Nobody," she whispered at last. "I just play." The man raised his eyebrows. "Nobody? No lessons? No teacher?" She shook her head quickly. Her fingers brushed the keyboard again, as if to hide behind the only thing that never judged her. A murmur spread through the crowd. "Impossible," someone said. "She's just a kid." "She's lying." Nobody plays like that without training. The girl felt her chest tighten. This was the part she hated. The disbelief, the accusations. People always assumed she was pretending, or worse, that she had stolen the music from someone else. Her hands trembled. For a moment, she thought about packing up and running. But then, an older woman with silver hair stepped forward. She had been standing quietly near the back, but now her eyes glistened with tears. "Play again, sweetheart," the woman said softly. "Don't listen to them. Just play." The girl hesitated. She searched the woman's face, looking for any hint of cruelty, but all she saw was kindness. And maybe, just maybe, belief. So she lifted her hands once more. This time, she chose a different melody, one her mother used to hum when times weren't so hard. It was gentle at first, like a lullaby carried on the wind. Then it grew into something stronger, braver. The man with the briefcase's mouth dropped slightly. His trained ear couldn't believe it. "That's Chopin," he whispered under his breath. "And not just Chopin, she's improvising." The crowd leaned in closer, no longer doubting. Phones came out, recording the scene. Every person standing there knew they were witnessing something rare, something precious. And in the middle of it all, the little girl's eyes stayed closed, her soul pouring through every note, as if the world around her no longer existed. The music swelled, spilling into night air like a secret too powerful to contain. Cars slowed as drivers rolled down their windows, trying to catch the sound. The chilly wind seemed to soften, wrapping itself around the haunting melody. By now, the girl had drawn a full circle of strangers around her. People stood shoulder to shoulder, forgetting the cold, forgetting their schedules, forgetting everything except the sound of that broken keyboard in the hands of a homeless child. And then it happened. Tears streamed down a woman's face as she whispered, "That's not just playing. That's a cry for help." Another man, one of the same who had laughed earlier, lowered his head in shame, unable to meet the girl's eyes. But the man with the briefcase didn't look away. Instead, he stepped forward, his polished shoes clicking against the pavement until he stood just feet from the girl. "You're not just talented," he said firmly, loud enough for everyone to hear. "You're extraordinary." The girl's hands paused. Compliments were rare in her world, and they always came with strings attached. So she kept her eyes on the keyboard, bracing herself for the but that usually followed. But no but came. Instead, the man crouched down so he was level with her. "What's your name?" he asked gently. She hesitated. Sharing her name felt risky, like giving away a piece of herself. But something in his voice felt safe. "Lily," she whispered. "Lily," he repeated, as though testing the sound. Then he smiled faintly. "You have a gift that doesn't belong on a street corner. You deserve a real piano, a real stage." Gasps rippled through the crowd. A stage? For her? The girl's heart pounded in her chest. Still, doubt gnawed at her. People promised things all the time. Most never kept them. So she asked in the smallest voice, "Why should I believe you?" The man's smile faded into something more serious. He straightened up, adjusted his scarf, and looked her directly in the eyes. "Because, Lily," he said, "I'm the director of the Chicago Symphony." For a moment, Lily thought she misheard him. The Chicago Symphony? The very name sounded like a fairy tale. Something meant for rich kids with polished shoes and private tutors, not for a girl who slept on park benches and ate when she was lucky. The crowd erupted into whispers. Did he say Chicago Symphony? He's serious? Wait! He knows talent when he hears it. Lily's chest tightened. She wanted to believe him. But her life had taught her that promises often dissolved into thin air. Still, the way the man spoke carried weight, authority. It wasn't just flattery. "My name is Daniel Carter," he said, placing his briefcase gently on the ground. "And I've spent my life searching for talent. What you just played. Lily, that was genius. Raw, untaught genius." Lily's hands trembled above the cracked keys. Genius? No one had ever used that word for her. The words she usually heard were poor, dirty, or homeless. Never genius. But even with Daniel's words ringing in her ears, doubt remained. "I don't have money," she said quietly, "or nice clothes, or or even a home. People don't want girls like me on stages. Daniel's expression softened. Music doesn't care where you come from. And neither do I. All I care about is what you carry in here. He tapped his chest gently, just above his heart. And you, Lily, you carry something the world needs to hear. The silver-haired woman in the crowd nodded through her tears. He's right, sweetheart. Don't let the world tell you you're less than what you are. The people surrounding her began to clap, softly at first, then stronger, not out of pity, but out of respect. Lily's throat tightened. For so long she had been invisible. Now, for the first time, she was seen. Still, fear whispered in her ear. What if it was all too good to be true? What if this was just another dream that would vanish by morning? Daniel seemed to read her hesitation. Lily, he said firmly, come with me tomorrow. I'll prove to you this isn't a joke. I'll give you a piano worthy of your gift. The girl's lips parted, but no words came. Could she really trust him? Lily stared at Daniel, her small fingers still hovering over the broken keyboard. The crowd waited in silence, their breath visible in the cold night air. Tomorrow, she whispered, as though the word itself might break. Daniel nodded. Tomorrow, meet me at the Symphony Hall. I'll be waiting. The girl's heart pounded. Symphony Hall. She had walked past it before, gazing up at its grand pillars and glass doors, convinced it was a place she'd never belong. Now this stranger, this powerful man, was telling her it could be her new home. But fear clung tightly. What if she went and they laughed at her again? What if the doors stayed closed? Sensing her doubt, Daniel reached into his coat pocket and pulled out a sleek black card. Here, he said, handing it to her. The silver letters gleamed under the streetlight. Daniel Carter, director, Chicago Symphony. The crowd gasped softly. It was real. Lily clutched the card like it was gold. She looked up at him, her voice trembling. And if I come and I'm not good enough? Daniel smiled, not unkindly. Lily, you don't need to prove anything. The moment you touched those keys, you already showed the world who you are. Applause broke out again, louder this time. People began placing more than coins into her cup, dollar bills, even a few 20s. A woman handed her a warm sandwich. The hot dog vendor quietly wrapped 2 sausages in foil and slipped them beside her keyboard. For the first time in years, Lily didn't feel invisible. She felt chosen. That night, after the crowd slowly dispersed, Lily hugged the battered keyboard to her chest. She ate the sandwich, stared at the silver card in her hand, and let herself believe, just for a moment, that maybe tomorrow could be different. And as she curled up beneath the city's cold stars, one thought burned brighter than the rest. They had laughed at her when she asked, "Can I play for food?" But soon, the whole world would listen, not because she was homeless, not because she was hungry, but because she was a piano prodigy. The girl no one believed and was about to step onto the stage of her destiny.